You might think you need all this stuff to just get started in bonsai, but you don't. And today I'm going to show you what you need to just get started, and it's cheaper than you think. When I first started getting into bonsai, I did what I think most of us do, and I started looking around for a whole heap of bonsai pots. But when you really think about it, bonsai pots are probably the last thing we need to be spending our money on. A bonsai is not meant to go into a bonsai pot until it reaches the end of its development, when you start refining the tree and working on all the fine details. And when we're starting out, we're probably not likely to have trees like that for quite a while. So we'll get rid of these and we'll have a look at what we actually need. If I was starting out again and I was on a limited budget, I'd put together a very basic set of tools, some consumables, and get started on working on trees. Now, when we first get our little trees and we're starting to work on them, the main things we have to do are feeding and watering, slip potting them into larger pots, some pruning and wiring, maybe some root pruning. And when it comes to pruning, my go-to is a set of these concave branch cutters. You can cut some quite big branches with them, you can trim small branches, you can do just about all of your pruning with a single set of these. Very handy piece of equipment. There are other styles around for different purposes. These are just a good all-round set. You don't need to spend a fortune on them. These are probably at the higher end of the Chinese made tools, so they're pretty reasonably priced. To go with that, I would add a second pair of concave branch cutters. Just a cheap set, and I would use these for any root pruning, because there are some pretty hard particles in your soil and you will damage your blades quite easily. So if you keep it one set for root pruning and one set for branch pruning, your branch pruning pair will last a lot longer and they'll do a better job of cutting your branches. Wiring is probably one of the main tasks that we will do as our trees are small. So just get a whole range of different sizes, from fairly thick wire to really thin wire if you want to start getting into wiring some branches when they're really young. I use aluminium wire because it's easily available and it's just easy to work with. It's softer than copper wire. Copper wire can be a little bit harder to work with. Copper wire has better holding power, but it's more expensive and it's more hard to work with. Aluminium's just, it's just simple, cheap, and it does the job. To go with that, I would add just a normal pair of pliers, small pliers. They don't have to be anything flash. These are good for cutting your wire. You can hold the wire, you can use it to bend. Really handy bit of kit. Aside from these basic tools, I'd just get a range of plastic pots so that you can continually pot your trees up into larger size pots when they need it. And that'll just help them to keep actively growing and put that size on that you really want them to do when they're younger. One alternative to the plastic pot that's really good are these metal colanders. You can just find them at your local op shop. Some people are giving them away. They've got really good drainage in them. They last for ages. The trees seem to do really well in them. This is an Australian native little Leptospermum. This is some sort of sequoia. I think it's a Californian redwood, that one. It doesn't particularly like our climate here, but I'm having a go at growing it anyway. And apart from that, you just need to water them and feed them. So a good organic fertilizer like Dynamic Lifter, or there's lots of ones on the market that are fine to use on bonsai. And just a standard potting mix. When you're in this phase where you're trying to just grow, put size on your trees, a standard potting mix is perfectly fine. You don't need to get into the expensive bonsai soils and things like that. I just use a standard potting mix. Once they go into a bonsai pot, we transition them into something that drains a bit better and has a few other properties. But again, that sort of comes down to the refinement of the tree. Those really gritty soils help promote real fine root growth, and that tends to promote fine growth up top of the tree. But until you get your trees to the point where you want to start developing those fine branches, there's no point. You're spending money for nothing. So this really basic set of gear here will get you started. And then as your trees get to a size and shape that you're happy with, start spending your money on a few bonsai pots and a few more tools maybe, and you know, but to get going, mate, this is all you need. You know, all the other tools, they all have their uses. Like the knob cutters are good for getting in and cutting branches off flush with a trunk and getting that concave shape so the scars heal better, but they're not essential. And your little snips, they're good for cutting a lot of the fine stuff. So all this other stuff, it's nice to have, but you don't need it. And you can add it later on. Stick to these few basic things and just get out there and buy some trees and start growing them. Anyway, thanks for watching and we'll catch you on the next one.